It is a Victory Monday here on the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. The Browns get it done. Not the way we probably all expected, but nonetheless, they get their second straight victory for the first time since week 4 of last season. The Browns beat the Texans and remain in the playoff hunt. A big long shot, certainly still at 5-7, but not over yet. They'll keep it going with a big matchup against the Bengals next Sunday. But we look back to the Browns and Texans. We'll look around the league. We'll, of course, talk about Deshaun Watson's debut. It's all football for the next 25 to 30 minutes right here in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Bow, bow. Bow, bada, bow, bow, bow. Yes, indeed. All right, weird game as the Browns beat the Texans. As I said, their second straight win for the first time since week 4 of last year. The final is 27-14. Deshaun Watson appeared in his first game in 23 months, played his first game ever for the Cleveland Browns, and he was awful. I have to give him an F for this game. It doesn't shatter my expectations for Deshaun Watson going forward at all. I thought, unlike a lot of people, I said there'd be rust with Watson. Obviously, I didn't think he'd be this rusty. He was terrible in this game. There's no other way around it. He threw probably 8 of his 22 passes in the ground. He threw a terrible pick when the Browns were in the red zone in at the goal line. So it was a terrible day. And despite that, the Browns, and they didn't really run it all that well either. I mean, they had 174 yards, but it was on 38 carries. At one point, people were complaining about them not running the ball. I was like, well, they're running it plenty. And wow, look, the Browns actually won a game where Nick Chubb didn't run the ball 20 times. It was nothing really by you look at this game. There were 41 points scored in this game. The Browns defense scored 14 points. The Texans offense scored 12 points. They got that garbage time touchdown. The Browns special teams scored 7 points. The Browns offense scored 3 points, and the Texans defense scored 2 points with the safety that they got. It was a very bizarre game. Neither team did much offensively. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb did pretty well, but it wasn't like a mind-blowing game. G. Bush said on the postgame show yesterday he thought it was Kareem Hunt's best game, and yeah, it was probably one of his best games of the year. He actually averaged more yards per carry than Nick Chubb, which is very rare. Nick Chubb had a solid 4.7 per carry. Kareem Hunt, 6.2. He also caught 2 passes. And despite getting very little in the passing game, again, Deshaun Watson, 12 of 22, 131 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. The Browns get it done. In the end, that's all that matters. They played one of these teams that you see every few years that's historically bad. When the Browns were 1-15, 0-16, they were up there. We've seen some really, really bad teams. This Texans team is hideous. They have nothing. They have a really nice young running back, Dameon Pierce, who really impressed. I don't know why they took him out of the game ever, because he was the only thing they had. Their quarterback's a joke. The rest of the team stinks. I mean, they have nothing. They have nothing, very little on defense, nothing on offense outside of Pierce. I don't think you could read too much into this game. The defense has played well 2 games in a row, and you hope you can carry off that. They did play well against the Bengals 5 weeks ago. We'll see if they can do that again in Cincinnati. That'll be obviously a much more interesting test, even though the Browns have played well against the Bengals. It's still a really good team. The Bengals are favored by 4.5 points, and it would be extremely impressive to see the Browns defense play as well as it has the last 2 weeks. Again, in the end, all that matters is the win. The defense played great. Donovan Peoples-Jones with the big punt return for a touchdown, which gave them the lead that they never relinquished. But I think you got to just say, okay, good win. You got it done. You took care of business, but you got to move it forward. You can't really read anything out of it. In terms of Deshaun Watson, let's not overreact to one game. Did I expect him to play better? Of course I did. I thought he'd play well. I wasn't expecting a great game. I thought they'd run the ball a lot, which they ended up doing. Now, of course, they did it because they were up by a lot, which you expect, which is what I expected. But I didn't expect them to be up a lot because they scored 3 defensive/special teams touchdowns. They were up a lot because of that. Deshaun Watson, as I said, he really struggled. He showed a couple of flashes throughout the game where you're like, ooh, you see the specialness. Obviously, he's a tremendous athlete. He ran the ball a couple times, 7 times actually. It was actually more than I realized he ran the ball. Not all that effectively. He had a couple of nice runs. But this will help. For Watson, it's a game you throw in the trash. It was the perfect team to play against. Everybody was worried that the crowd would be so awful. The crowd was a non-factor. There was some booing. It was a non-factor. I think it'll be worse in Cincinnati, where the Texans fans have checked out. They weren't showing up just to boo Watson, whereas in Cincinnati, it'll be much worse for him there. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to play badly. I would expect him to play significantly better, but I think even I, who thought there'd be some rust, and you can't give him a total pass. I can't just say, well, every time he plays poorly now, it's rust. No, well, he played a terrible game, but you had to think there'd be some growing pains since he hasn't played in almost 2 years, and clearly that was the case. We've seen this guy in his career be one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the entire National Football League, and he just wasn't. The ball was all over the place, but mostly low. And there's probably, nerves. There's probably a part of him trying to, show people that he's great, earn the contract, deal with the off-the-field stuff. There's a lot going on. Did he have any distractions internally, mentally? Only he knows that. It's hard to say. I'd expect this to be the worst game he played. And if they could win the worst game he played, so be it. That's why it was perfect for it to be against the Texans. Because if Deshaun Watson plays like this again, the Browns will not win. They will not beat Cincinnati if he plays that way. They will not beat Baltimore if he plays that way. They will not beat Washington if he plays that way. He's got to play significantly better. Now, does he have to play like a superstar every game for them to win? No. But he's got to play better than he did. I would certainly expect that. My excitement level, my enthusiasm for what the future could bring with the talent of Deshaun Watson has not changed an inch. Nothing, not at all. It's one game. You throw it away. We have to admit it was terrible. There's nothing else you could say. Today on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, we're going to be giving grades to Deshaun Watson. I don't see I can give anything but an F. I mean, he was horrible. But they found a way. And now next week, the challenge will be better. You're playing you go from playing the worst team in football to one of the 5 best teams in football. And we know that the Browns handled them big time when they played in Cleveland. That doesn't mean they're going to handle them. They may. There may be something to it. If the Browns win again against the Bengals, I'm going to start believing there's something to it. To me, at this point, it's too small of a sample size. But next week is the toughest test they got. The Bengals are the best team they're playing the rest of the season. If they can beat the Bengals next week, then they can beat anybody on their schedule. It's still going to be nearly impossible to make the playoffs. I think they have a 3% chance of making it. Even if they win out, there's not a guarantee. Because even if they win out, the Ravens and Bengals will still have to lose some other games, and in terms of the wild card, the teams you're battling are the Jets, the Patriots, and the Chargers, and you've lost to all 3. So the Browns would have to finish with a better record than all of those teams to get into that, that wild card mix. Listen, crazier things have happened. It is possible, and I'm excited that the Browns are still alive. We still have interesting football for at least one more week. And if the Browns can beat Cincinnati in Cincinnati this coming Sunday and get to one game under 500, then we'll get to a different level. Because now it's 4 games, you've won 3 in a row, and you've beaten the best team, one of the best teams on your schedule twice. And you would have gone on the road, had a big quality win. And the Browns' only 2 road wins this year in Carolina and Houston, maybe the 2 worst teams in football. Certainly Houston's the worst. Carolina, one of the worst. So, I think, again, so it's such a weird game. Kudos to the defense. Again, I'm not going to get carried away. I still have some major concerns about the Browns' front 7. I still don't think they're any good there outside of Myles Garrett. But they did the job. Pierce ran pretty well, but the Texans just had no threat in the passing game. Secondary played extremely well in this one. The Tony Fields, who played a lot more than usual because of Sione Takitaki getting hurt. Obviously, he had a monster game in this one. Takitaki still, even with the injury, led the team in tackles. But Tony Fields had a lot of big plays, defended a pass, had the touchdown. Myles Garrett was a big factor. Tackle for a loss, hit the quarterback. Grant Delpit had a couple of big hits. Denzel Ward had a good game. Most of the guys on the defensive side I thought played pretty well. It's a weird game. I think we all expected the Browns to win. I think we all expected them to cover. I don't think anybody expected it like this. You would have thought Deshaun Watson at the very least would have a decent game. He did not. And then you think, well, if he didn't have a good game, then Nick Chubb had a monster game. He did not. He had an okay game. But the defense and the special teams, and man, Donovan Peoples-Jones, this guy, he didn't have a huge offensive day, although he did lead the team with 44 receiving yards. Caught all 3 of his targets for 44 yards, but he's just getting better and better. He's becoming very dangerous in returns. Obviously he had the 76-yard return for the touchdown. It's the first Browns punt return for a touchdown forever, I think since Josh Cribbs. And man, unlike Jerome Ford, who looks like, guy looks like quite the stiff as a rookie. I don't know why he's taking the ball out of the end zone all the time. He didn't look good when he got an opportunity offensively, but whatever. Nice pick by John Johnson on defense to get the momentum going early. He got lucky. It tipped off the tight end up in the air. Nice catch. Good job keep his feet. It's good to see Cade York. Cade York, who has obviously really struggled the last, 2 months or so, had a good day today, making both of his field goals and all 3 of his extra points, including a 43-yarder. The punter, Corey Bjorkes, had a good day. He's had been receiving a lot of criticism for his holds. Jay Feely confirmed again today that he was not to blame for the Cade York mistakes, that it was mechanical issues, and Bjorkes had a good day. 4 of his 6 punts inside the 20 of the Texans. Both teams kind of got stuck inside their own zone a lot. The Browns had like a stretch where I think it was 3 series in a row inside the 10, and 2 of those 3 were inside the 3. So, but the bottom line is the Browns get the win. They keep their playoff hopes alive. They're at others receiving votes at the moment. You look at the playoff picture. The Browns are sitting in the, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're the 11 seed right now. 11 seed right now. Everybody won in the division yesterday. Steelers have won 2 in a row. Man, I hate to admit it, but the kid there's making some progress. I didn't see much of that game yesterday. I'm going to rewatch it, but Kenny Pickett is making some progress. I want him to suck, but he's making progress. I still don't think the Steelers are any good, but yeah, listen. I thought they had no chance of finishing over 500. I still don't, but with Tomlin, I guess you never know. You should never count him out. But I'm still saying, let's see, they're 5-7. They got the Ravens at home, and Lamar Jackson probably won't play, at the Panthers, Raiders at home, at the Ravens, Browns. Can the Steelers go 3-2 to finish over 5? No, they got to go 4-1 to finish over 500. They probably won't, but it's possible. Especially, you like their chances a lot more without Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson got hurt. Ravens did score a touchdown late to win 10-9. So they won their game. And then, of course, the game of the day was the Bengals and the Ravens. And the Bengals won that one. The Bengals and the Chiefs. And the Bengals winning that game by a final of 27-24. Man, it's amazing. You look at the Bengals in their last 7 games, they're 6-1. They got smoked by the Browns. And otherwise, they have just played great football since they started. They started 0-2. They won 2 in a row. They lost to the Ravens. Bengals are 8-4, but they're 0-3 in the division. I mean, what are the odds of that? That's crazy. So it's, the Bengals have owned the Chiefs. The Browns have owned the Bengals. Should be a fun game next week. I'm going to be fascinated to see how that game goes. Do the Browns keep it going? This domination they've had, and the 2 games that they've beaten Burrow the last 2 years were ass kickings by the Browns, not just wins. Like the Bengals have beaten the Chiefs 3 times in the last 2 years, but they were all great games, close games. The Browns have given, in their 2 matchups the last 2 years, the Browns have given the Bengals an ass kicking both times. Last year with Baker, this year with Brissett. We'll see what Watson looks like. We'll see what Burrow looks like. And it's weird how these matchups work sometimes. Can the Bengals adjust? The Chiefs were unable to. We'll see if the Bengals can. So, in that game, obviously, in Cincinnati, the Bengals have opened as a 4.5-point favorite. I got a few other things. I want to go around the NFL for a few other things. I got a lot more on the Browns and their victory and where they go from here as well. I want to remind you that the podcast today is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. One other thing I wanted to talk about before we take this first break. I saw my man Mikey McNugget sent the text about our Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show last night for today's show, and he's like, "Did the punt return touchdown by Donovan Peoples-Jones save Mike Prefer's job?" I mean, I'm gonna have to rip Mikey tomorrow because that's an absurd question. Mike Prefer is a bad special teams coach. I don't know how he has a job. One punt return for a touchdown by Donovan Peoples-Jones, which I'm giving no credit to Prefer, fair or not. Why would that save his job? That's an insane question. He's gonna. If Stefanski was going to fire him, he's not going to change his mind based on that. He's either going to fire him, he's not. One play is not going to change that. I think it's clear to me that Joe Woods, no matter what happens the rest of the season, I guess if they win out and go to the playoffs, maybe I'll change my mind. But as of now, I can't imagine there's anything that's going to happen the rest of the season that would want me to keep either Joe Woods or Mike Prefer. I think they both have done a bad job. Prefer has been even worse than Woods, in my opinion. He's been horrible. And so I'd get rid of both of them. Anyway, all right, folks, betonline.net, your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer to esports. We've got it all on betonline.net. I'm not going to beat this, man. Let me tell you. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the easiest, fastest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Back in 10 seconds. All right. Let's get the camera back on here, too. There we go. Okay. So the Browns, great effort defensively. Again, they win, improved to 5-7, tied with the Steelers. Browns are 2-1 in the division. They could end up with the tiebreaker. It's going to be tricky, though. The Ravens are probably going to end up. I said the Bengals are 0-3 in the division. My bad. They're 1-3 in the division. But the Ravens still in decent shape. Even without Lamar, they probably will end up not winning the division. But they have the tiebreaker over the Bengals and will have the tiebreaker over them. Well, I guess that's not a guarantee. If the Ravens lost out and the Bengals beat the Browns next week, then the Bengals would have the tiebreaker over the Ravens in the division. But the odds of the Ravens losing out are not obviously very good. But the Browns could still get a tiebreaker with the Ravens. If the Browns win out and the Ravens lose 2 division games or lose one other division game besides the Browns lose 2, they still have 2 games with the Steelers and 1 with the Bengals. So if the Browns win out and the Ravens lose one other division game, the Browns would have the tiebreaker for the division title. Now, at the moment, they're 3 games back of both Baltimore and Cincinnati, but if they beat them once each and have the tiebreaker, it could be a different story. So, if you say, so if the Ravens and Bengals only need 3 wins, and then the Browns can't catch them because the Browns can only get to 10. The Bengals and Ravens only need 3 wins to get to 11. It's going to be tough. But with the Ravens losing Lamar, it's a better chance. And then the Bengals have a tough schedule. Bengals have the Browns at home. We know that's going to be tough. Then they're at Tampa. I don't think Tampa's very good, but it's not an easy game. Same thing with New England. They go at New England. And then their last 2 games are at home, but it's against the Bills and the Ravens. So the Bengals don't have a soft opponent left. Every team they're playing the rest of the way is at least decent. Again, Tampa Bay's not very good. So, but you're never going to write off Tom Brady completely. So it is possible that the Bengals could go, if the Bengals go 2-3, this is what you need to happen. The Browns got to win out. You got the Bengals go 2-3, which is reasonable because they're, if they lose to the Browns, well, you'd have to hope they lose 3 of their last 4 at Tampa, at New England, Buffalo at home, Ravens at home. That's possible. I don't think they'll lose 3 of those 4, but they could, certainly. And then you'd need the Ravens to lose a few other games as well. Again, we all understand it's a long shot, but anything's possible. All right, let's get to a few other things. NFL yesterday. I mentioned the other division games that all the teams won. Packers, a nice comeback win, beat the Bears 28-19. They scored 18 in the fourth quarter after being down 19-10 to start the fourth. Justin Fields had a rough day, threw 2 picks, but obviously he's, really turned the corner this year. Nice win for Detroit. They won 4 in a row or 3 in a row. 40-14. They're still alive in the NFC. Their offense, great. Jared Goff had a big game. Vikings won an interesting game with the Jets. Jets had a couple of chances late in the red zone, but couldn't get it done. 27-22. Former Buckeye Garrett Wilson with 8 catches for 162 yards in the loss for the Jets. Giants and Commanders a tie. Ties are the worst. But Commanders have won, I think they're 6-1-1 in their last 8. So that game, which you thought early this season might be an easy one for the Browns, not. Speaking of not easy, the Eagles didn't make it easy for the Titans. They crushed them 35-10. Eagles dominate this one. Seahawks beat the Rams 27-23. The Rams 3-9. Got to be the worst defending champs ever. They have completely cratered. 49ers beat the Dolphins 33-17. Tua left the game, came back. Jimmy Garoppolo left the game. He's done for the year. He's got a broken foot. Brutal loss for the Niners. They're down to their 3rd-string quarterback. Raiders beat the Chargers 27-20. Nice win there. The Chargers every year disappoint. Monday Night Football tonight. Saints and Buccaneers, 8:15 start. Bucs are a 3.5-point favorite at home. I think the Buccaneers, I think they get back to 500. I think they'll win. Again, I'm down on Brady, but the Saints are a mess. They're a mess, and they're terrible on the road. I know it's a warm weather road team, but still. I'll lay the 3.5 with Tampa tonight. All right, when we come back, give you some final thoughts on the Buckeyes making the college football playoffs, plus the Cavs with an awful loss last night. That's coming up to wrap things up right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. All right, Cavs last night lose 92-81. Just a horrific performance. They scored 27 points in the second quarter and scored 54 points the rest of the game. Oh, this was brutal. They went to New York and they were just, this was just a horrible game. They shot 35% from the field and 23% from 3. Rough night for both Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, who combined to go 13 of 41 and 5 of 20 from 3. They both had rough days. They had 8 assists and 7 turnovers between them. They scored 40, but it was a pretty empty 40. Nobody really had a particularly good game in this one. What do I got? I mean, Mobley had 11 and 10. He was all right. But this one you got to flush. Terrible performance. You hold the team to 92. You think the Cavs are going to win pretty much all the time, but that did not happen. As for the Buckeyes, they catch a break. Needed either USC or TCU to lose. They both lost. TCU still makes the playoffs. I had said last week that I thought Ohio State should be out. I said unless USC got crushed. And you could argue whether they got crushed. I mean, they were in the game early fourth quarter. But I changed, whether you want to call it changing my mind or not, if you don't think it was crushed. Last night I said, or Saturday night I said, I thought the Buckeyes should be in as the 4 seed. I would have kept TCU at 3. That's exactly what happened. So the Buckeyes, for the first time ever, 2 Big Ten teams in the college football playoff. And if the Buckeyes can upset number 1 Georgia, then we could see, with Michigan obviously playing TCU, we could possibly see a rematch of Ohio State-Michigan for the national title. And I can't even imagine what the ratings would be if Ohio State and Michigan played for a national championship. I haven't seen the spreads yet. Okay, here we go. I got them. Michigan is a 9.5-point favorite over TCU, and Georgia is a 6.5-point favorite over Ohio State. So obviously Vegas thinks the TCU should have been 4 and Ohio State should have been 3, since I'm sure they think Georgia's better than Michigan, and yet Michigan's a bigger favorite against the 3 seed. So we'll see. I mean, listen, I know there's a lot of people who think Ohio State can't win. I'm not one of those people. I know they were awful in the second half against Michigan. That game's in the past. Find a way to get it done. So there you go. The 4 p.m. TCU Michigan, 8 p.m. Ohio State Georgia. Those games on New Year's Eve. So you got 4 weeks to go till those games happen. All right, that's going to do it for me on this Monday. Make sure you check out the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show today and every day. Become a subscriber to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. You get and click the alert bell. You get alerts whenever I whenever I put out a podcast, whenever we put out a show podcast, whenever we do a post game show or a breaking news show, anything related, including my podcast. You'll get. And become a member for $4.99 a month. For less than $60 a year, you get bonus content. Almost every day we do a show. 99% of our shows we follow up with at least 10 minutes, if not a little more, of bonus content for our subscribers. And again, that is only $4.99 a month. Check out my website, adamthebull.com, on Cameo at Adam the Bull, and of course on Twitter at Adam the Bull. And check out the Locked On Browns podcast for more Browns insight with my man G. Bush and Jeff Lloyd. They put one of those podcasts out almost every day. I'll talk to you on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show at 11 a.m. today. I'll talk to you tomorrow on the podcast. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. See ya.